Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Junebug Unchained, back yet again with a brand new video. And so you all thought I disappeared on you, huh? You thought I was gone, right? Well, I'm back again for the moment anyway. And I want to thank everybody who responded to my last video with all the nice comments. I really appreciate it. And I hope you all are doing well. And by now, I know everybody knows who Elliot Rodger is. I'm sure you all have been following the news on this guy. He was a 22-year-old sexually frustrated virgin. He was mentally disturbed. He was deranged. And mainly, he said in his manifesto that it was because he could never attract women, that women didn't like him. And he never even kissed a girl. So this really angered him. And he believed that if he couldn't have sex, nobody should be able to have sex. So he made this plan to have a day of retribution, and that's what he called it. And that actually was a day he was going to commit a mass killing spree. And that's basically what he did. He went on a killing spree. I think the death total was 6, if I remember correctly. And then there were several other people who were injured also before he turned the guns on himself and killed himself. And he has all of these YouTube videos left behind of him talking about how much he hated humanity. A lot of people got it wrong. They were saying that he hated women, that he was a misogynist, but he made it clear that he hated humanity, period. He hated women. He hated the men who were able to attract women because he figured, why the hell should they be able to have sex and him not be able to have sex? And this guy came from a very good family. His father, of course, as you all know, was first assistant director on the Hunger Games movies. His father had also done other directing work and was a part of the entertainment industry. And so was his mother and stepmother. They were involved in some way. I think his stepmother was an actress also in another country. So this guy had a great family in terms of, I guess, financially and socially. His family was well respected, but his father and his mother, to a degree, they just really did not pay enough attention, and they just neglected him at times. According to his manifesto, he was neglected a little bit, and he had some traumatic experiences growing up. He was bullied in school. He was picked on. And the guy was just deranged, as I said earlier, because, of course, there are some people out there who go through the same things. Their parents get a divorce. Their parents neglect them. There's people who have been through all types of trauma, and they manage to still maintain their sanity and move on with their life. See, some people are weak-minded. Some people just cannot handle adversity. Some people can't move on because, truth to be told, most of us do have adversity in our life. We may not all have trauma. A lot of people do have trauma, but we do have adversity. And it's not about the adversity. It's about how you handle it. Can you move on? Can you make practical decisions after that? Do you hold bitterness? And some people can't handle adversity the way other people can. Some people are weak. Some people need professional help. And even the professional help doesn't help sometimes, because Elliot Rodger had been in therapy since he was 9 years old. And that didn't seem to help. And the people around him couldn't seem to figure him out. This guy, Elliot Rodger, had he been in his right mind and not batshit crazy and deranged, I believe that he could have easily attracted women. I mean, come on now. The car that he was driving, the family that he comes from. If my dad, I'm just going to say this. If my dad was in Hollywood as a director, that alone is enough to have a damn freak party 7 days a week. Women lined up in and out of my house, tons of women just coming in, draws off 24/7. That alone is enough. There's women that will drop their panties just because you're a part of the entertainment industry. You don't even have to be in it. If you know somebody else who's in the entertainment industry, you can get the draws off. I remember a story of this guy, David Cassidy. And yes, I'm going way back, but this is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. This guy, David Cassidy, I know you all don't know who that is, but he was an entertainer. He was a teen idol back in the 70s. He was on this TV show called The Partridge Family. Well, he wrote a book about his experiences, his life story, his memoir, if you will. And he talked about how not only was he having sex all day if he wanted with different women, groupie ass women all the time, but anybody who was around him, who was connected to him, who worked for him, who did anything at all for him, they had access to 24/7 sex also. He was talking at one point in the book about when he did his concerts, because he was a singer too, and he played guitar. There was one man whose job it was, this was at the pinnacle of his career. He was like popular. He was a millionaire at that time. And all the girls would scream and faint when he walked in the room, but he would be on stage performing, and he had a lot of people working for him. But there was this one guy whose job it was to bring him a guitar on stage at a certain point in the show. There was a certain song that he did that required for him to play the guitar. Generally, he would just be, I guess, standing there singing, and the band would be accompanying him. But at this one point, this guy would bring him the guitar, and that's all that guy did. And that guy got paid to do that, would just bring him the guitar on stage at that certain point in the show. Well, there was one night, he was doing a show, big concert, everybody was out there. And when that time came for the man to bring him the guitar, the man wasn't there to bring him the guitar. So he's like, what the hell's going on? So he walks off stage. He goes backstage. The guitar man that was supposed to bring him the damn guitar was on top of some woman in the dressing room, woman's legs in the air, banging her ass out. David Cassidy walks in on a downstroke, and he's like, damn, even the guitar man is able to get sex because of his connection to me. I guess the damn janitor who sweeps up the stage after we finish, I guess he's getting laid too. And that's all his job was to bring David Cassidy the guitar. And since we're on the subject, another example that's a favorite of mine comes from rapper actor Ice-T. He had a book out some years ago called The Ice Opinion. But he talked about how a friend of his, this is Ice-T now, he said a friend of his could not get women. So what he did was for his friend was he created a voicemail message that the friend could use on his, what do they used to call those? The answering machine. Ice-T wrote about this in his book, that he did this message where he called his friend up and he said, hey man, I'm just getting in touch with you. We're getting ready to do the music video. And I was wondering if you knew some girls, some models who wanted to be in the next music video. Holla back at me, or something along those lines. Now, Ice-T did that recording specifically to help his friend get women. Now, what did his friend do with that recording? Well, whenever his friend invited women over to his apartment, he would tell the woman to have a seat, get comfortable. And then he would say, I'm going to check my voicemail messages here, my answering machine. Then he would hit play and let that recording play while he went to the bathroom or went somewhere else. And 100% of the time, he ended up having sex with that woman just because he was connected to somebody in the entertainment industry. So I'm not buying the argument that Elliot Rodger, with a powerful father in Hollywood, not really even that powerful, but his father was a first AD. You know how many groupie ass models want to get in the show business, or willing to sleep their way up, just want to be around somebody who is connected to showbiz in some way? He could have got women. I don't care what nobody says. I know some people will argue with me. This guy could have got women easily. But it was him. He was the problem. He was too sick. And I don't believe that no woman was attracted to him. I don't believe it. I believe that because he was so trapped in his head, because he kept thinking about what was going on with him instead of paying attention to what was going on around him, I'm sure women came across his path that sent him the signals and let him know that they were interested or they were open to him. But he wasn't able to see it. And even if the girl did come up to him, if you don't know how to talk to women, if you don't know how to interact with them, if they start flirting with you and dropping hints, if you say and do the wrong thing, or if you're shy, or if you're so damn awkward, they're going to like, well, I was going to give him some, but looks like he's just too weird. So I got to turn the opposite direction. I was wrong. So you can screw up your chances. His whole profile, his whole story is confirmation to me that we really do need the opposite sex because we are compatible mates. We complement each other, and something is going to be out of sync in most instances if that need is there and is not being met, whether it be a man or a woman. A lot of dysfunction grows out of that void. There used to be a time where women were walking around saying they don't need a man. Now, I don't hear that as frequently now as I used to hear back in the 80s and the 90s. But it's just not true. I mean, there's a need that women biologically have. And when that need is not fulfilled, and I'm not even talking about sex, I'm just talking about a male presence, male attention, male validation, and male protection. When a young woman I'm talking about, is not getting those things, sometimes she starts acting like a man herself to compensate for the lack of male protection. It's like subconsciously she's thinking, I don't have a man in my life. I never had daddy around. So therefore, I have to have this tough exterior. I have to act like a damn man myself to get things done because I don't have a male presence here to protect me and to provide that masculine energy that I need in my life. So I'm going to be a man and a woman. I'm going to act like a man and a woman so that I don't get trampled on in this world. That's what happens to some women. And this is not a conscious thing, but that's part of the reason why you see so many women now who are displaying both very masculine and feminine traits and ways of behaving, traditionally masculine and feminine traits. Because I know there's people out there that will battle and argue and say, what does masculine really mean? What does femininity really mean? When clearly there are differences between men and women. And anybody out here who's honest can look around them and see that there's a lot of women out here acting like dudes. They talking like dudes, cussing like dudes, showing masculine aggression and no femininity. But as far as young men are concerned, the flip side of that is a guy like Elliot Rodger, or just guys in general, who they're young, they're horny, and they're not interacting with a woman. They're not having sex. And I think a young man should have sex. Sex is a needed thing. A young, horny ass, young 22-year-old man, he needs sex because biologically there is a pressure on us to survive and to replicate. Those are the main two things we're driven to do on this planet. Most of everything we do comes back to those two things. Not everything, but most of those two things, we're doing it for one of those two reasons. It's either survival or it's either replication. Replication meaning procreation, meaning to mate with somebody else. It's a huge biological urge. It's a biological need. And when you're not meeting that need, it can drive you crazy. And especially for those men who are weak-minded and can't handle adversity, for those men, it turns into something perverted if they're not having sex. You know, it just morphs into something dysfunctional, like an Elliot Rodger, or even if it's not something as extreme as going out and committing mass murder, It may be something like, I'm just going to watch porn and masturbate 50,000 times a day. Like crazy. Way too much. There's some guys who are doing that as an outlet. Or they're turning to other kind of perverted things. I'm not even going to get into some of the other perverted things that end up happening when men are going long periods of time without sex. I'm not even going to get into that. But I think it's a breeding ground for dysfunction when a man is isolated. A young man now I'm talking about. I'm not really talking about an older man who may have already had his share of women, may have already had children, may be divorced, and just may be burned out and tired of relationships. But he's had his share of relationships, and he says, I just want to take a break from dating. I want to take a break from relationships. I don't even want to have sex at the current moment. I just need to get away from this for a moment. Some men are exhausted from having gone through so much with women, but I'm talking specifically about a young man like Elliot Rodger's age. So I think it is a necessary thing for our mental health, for our emotional health. It adds to our well-being if we're able to find a woman out of the bunch that's not crazy and mate with her. It really does help add some value, some quality to your life. I mean, that's one of the joys of life. If you're a man and you don't experience that, I think you're missing out. I mean, that's something that should be on the bucket list. It's not the most important thing in the world. It's not something that you should put above getting an education, building a career for yourself, taking care of your health. It's not more important than those things. But again, it adds balance. And I know it's difficult. I know it's hard to the fellas out there. I know you all have a hard time. We both have a hard time, men and women. We're creating a society, or we have created or socially engineered a society where it's becoming harder and harder and just more and more and more difficult as time goes on for us to have functional relationships with each other that work. It's very difficult to make that happen. So I understand everybody's frustration out there. I really do. In light of all of that being said, stay tuned for the next video that I'm going to upload after this one. It's going to be a video where I'm addressing a young man who is a virgin, and he's asking me for advice, and he's asking me if he should just go see a prostitute. So that's the next video. Check it out.